You missed your timing there, Russ. Sorry. Too bad. You couldn't get your face on there first. Happy Friday, folks. TGIF. We have Peter back today. Ack will be back on Monday, and there's some things to talk about today. But we need to start pre-show with something that irks me. But go ahead, Russ. I'll expound on that after you make your point.
So I was in my local 7-Eleven this morning. I had to get some cash. So I went to the ATM and I noticed that there was Mike. That was me getting into the chat room and all that. So I noticed that I walked by a bag of Ruffles and it had an odd flavor. Now I get when I go to Canada, I'm going to see different flavors. My feeling about Canada is with these American companies, most of those trial flavors seem to go to Canada, and then if they even have a 10%, rate of success, they come this way. It's just because the pickled chips, we've seen all that stuff in Canada first before they ever were here. So, but this flavor really got me because this was mozzarella and marinara sauce, and I was like,
"What?"
Yes.
And here's the thing: I'm not an Italian guy, obviously, but I grew up in an Italian Jewish neighborhood. Now, do I like mozzarella sticks? Sure. Do I love marinara sauce? Absolutely. Do I like those two things together? Sure, absolutely. Do I mix that with a potato taste? No. That's where I draw the line. Now, potato gnocchi, I get with sauce. It's fine, and it is potato, but it's not fried. And I think the combination there is just too much for me. I'm like, you know what? This is just craziness. Now we're just trying to put anything together.
Just like Hollywood has run out of ideas.
Yeah.
When it comes to movies, companies like Frito-Lay have run out of ideas when it comes to flavors. I know a few years ago they started petitioning, people to come up with ideas, and we had this series of ridiculous like tzatziki flavored potato chips and chicken and waffle flavored potato chips, which are just a joke. I don't think Canada is a testing ground. I mean, I've seen like all dressed chips and dill pickle and ketchup there for years.
No, but I've seen other flavors that I've only seen there once and never seen there here.
Right, but only in the last few. And honestly, it's like all they're doing is they're taking basically the tomato flavor that they use for ketchup chips and adding maybe the cheese from say nacho cheese or whatever, mixing it together, and there's your mozzarella and marinara.
Mozzarella, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I saw one that was Ruffles jalapeno ranch, and I'm like, okay, first of all, where the hell is jalapeno and ranch dressing ever mixed? Never, ever. I've never seen it before. So, and I tried it, and it was basically it was a ranch, like a Cool Ranch Dorito flavor with a little extra spice.
Yeah, like what am I going to see in the future? Liver and onions, potato chips, like that's the worst flavor I think of that you could make into something. It's just it's like, don't go for these flavor combinations and try and roll them into a potato chip. Go for one flavor. Like barbecue chips are good for a reason.
Yes,
it's the barbecue flavor and it works, right? Onion and garlic, same kind of thing. Those flavors mix, those spices mix. There's a million spices on the market. If you want to start messing with those, then mess with those.
Well, they can't help themselves, Russ. I mean, Lay's had regular barbecue chips.
Right.
Then they went, here's the KC Masterpiece flavor barbecue chip. Now it's the Southern Sweet barbecue chip. I know a lot about this because I go down this aisle a lot, believe me, in the supermarket. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I mean, why don't we just have like meatloaf chips?
Okay, so the other day we were driving out to visit some friends at a cottage.
Chips. Mike would love that.
And my youngest son comes out. We stopped to get gas and have a pee break, and comes out and he grabs a bag of chips. I grabbed like dill pickle because I'm a dill pickle guy.
Okay.
He comes back with something I've never seen: loaded baked potato. Oh my God, was it good?
Yeah. No, I've seen that before. That's not
the baked potato like this. It makes sense.
Yeah, right. But bacon flavor and sour cream.
Sure.
Okay, then chives. But all that is a sour cream and onion chip with a little bacon flavor added to it. That's it.
I like fried shrimp. I don't want to see it in a potato chip.
Yeah, haddock flavored potato
and
chip.
it's a Ruffles one too.
Yeah. No, that's a good flavor though, because those things make sense because that's what you do. But that's it. Like Ruffles, just do what you do with potatoes, do what you do with spices, but don't look for like main courses or appetizers to turn into chips.
Pizza
I know
flavor.
there's a barbecue rib chip. Like,
just stop. I'm sorry. It's like we're good with sour cream and onion, vinegar, salt and vinegar, dill pickle, ranch, cheese. We're good with the 6 or 7 flavors that are generally accepted. We don't need the. Honestly, do these companies think that like all of a sudden like people are gonna just have this eureka moment and buy up thousands of bags of chips?
Yeah, I think I told you this. Like lately, I had this ritual. Like before a softball game, I would eat a couple of Reese's peanut butter cups, right? And sometimes if you go into a store, it might take me 3 minutes to actually get those Reese's cups because there's 12 different variations of them.
I was gonna say, did you get the Reese's Pieces one, or did you get the
thick ones? That I get the one with Reese's Pieces? That I get that's like
the dark chocolate one, the white chocolate one? I mean, it's we don't, folks. We don't need this much variety. I like Coca-Cola. Now there's raspberry Coca-Cola, orange flavored Coke, lime flavored Coke. Oh my God!
I get it. That's fine. It's not taking up shelf space. I just think with this, it's like you're just looking for this short little fixes. Like we saw the turkey and the giblets kind of chips that came out, or turkey and stuffing, whatever they called it. And it's like, stop trying to do that. Like, don't have veal Parmesan chips. That's what I'm telling you.
And finally, I just have to throw this out because I know this irks you. I have not had a pumpkin spice sighting, but it is August 10th, and I went into a local supermarket a couple days ago, and what did they have, Russ? They had the Reese's peanut butter cup, the shape of a jack-o'-lantern. The Halloween.
When I posted that a week ago, someone said, "Oh, that must have been last year's," and it's like, no, it's not.
You're talking 2.5 months.
I know.
I mean, Jesus. I mean, stop.
I know.
Are we putting up our Christmas decorations on August 10th for Christ's sake?
Well,
it's ridiculous.
Marijuana becomes legal in Canada on October 17th. So imagine what we're going to see soon.
Oh my God. The Frito-Lay and Doritos are stocking up because Munchie sales are going to be out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michael Farb in the chat room, chicken parm chips. No. Don't ruin
steak hoagie chips. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, August 10th, 2018.
I'm Peter Tessier, back from Wilderness Purgatory in Winnipeg.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Well, folks, we have some news today and a signing of, I'd say, some import. Dylan Larkin, who we've talked about, and I think we mentioned earlier in the week, Russ, because we were talking about restricted free agents who had not been signed and what they would get, either a bridge deal or a long-term deal. And I think we both agreed that Larkin would get a long-term deal, but the question was how long?
Yeah.
And the deal came out today, and surprisingly, it was a 5-year deal at $6.1 million AAV. Now, the surprising thing here is, there's a lot of talk about, Larkin being the future leader of this team, future team captain, and you would expect the want of the Red Wings would be to get him locked up on as long a contract as possible. This is along the lines of the deals that Kane, Taves, Stamkos, Tavares all signed out of their ELCs. It's a 5-year deal. Larkin's 22, I believe, and he'll turn 27 when this deal expires. So he sets himself up for another big payday as an unrestricted free agent in his mid-20s. But what did you think of the amount, and what do you think of the deal?
I think the amount is about what we were all expected. I thought, Detroit would try and get an 8-year deal, and we don't know if Larkin got that offer, turned it down. We don't know about any of that. But what we do know, and I did just find out through I forget who retweeted it now. But anyhow, saw that he had a no trade in the
final year of the deal.
Year. So you start thinking now that this is a John Tavares deal, and you had mentioned that offline, and it really is, because this 4 years down the line, that final season, depending on where the Red Wings are at, you are now in that same boat, because you were going to be wondering, can we sign him to a long-term deal? Can we keep him? Can we are there these teams that want him? Can we get a decent deal for him, or is he just going to walk? And so that's the tough part of this deal is that no trade in the final year. And I get it from the player perspective. Hey, you asked for it, you got it. Hey, good for you. But this is going to make it tough for Red Wings fans down the line.
Now, Peter, they bought 1 year of unrestricted free agency on this deal, so he would have been eligible for UFA after year 4. So they get 1 year, and they're paying over $6 million AAV. I mean, the thing is, the cap hit is not the problem here. Because you're going to have guys like Zetterberg's contract, Mike Green's contract, Johan Franzen's deal all drop off in the lifespan of this. So I think that the Red Wings, if they could have gotten a longer deal, would have paid the extra money. But I think this is probably, and we don't know this for sure, I think this is probably Larkin setting himself up for another big payday, and that makes sense. But I agree with Russ. It also speaks to maybe the uncertainty of how good the Red Wings are going to be down the line.
Yeah, there's a few things here that's interesting. I saw a tweet that talked about the idea that Larkin jumped from, what did he jump from here? Let me pull this up. He jumped from 1.58 points per 60 at 5 versus 5 to 2.24 last year. So they've given him a pretty substantial contract based on 1 year. It's, based on a big jump. Now, I looked when I saw this deal, I immediately went and looked up Kyle Connor, because there's your comparison. Connor, just for instance, in 2 years ago in 2016-17, played 20 games played, had a 0.86 points per 60. Last year, 2.23. So an even bigger jump than Larkin. And he's going to be coming up
for Connors. Like Connors, he started to get better line mates on a better power. And he was on
so I mean, let's look who he's playing with. And Detroit's a vastly different team than Winnipeg is right now. So back to your point, Mike, when I started looking at comparables, and you start where you know best first, it doesn't seem like such a bad deal for Detroit or Larkin, simply because if he pans out to be what they think he's going to be, they're going to have another shot to sign him a year earlier than everyone else is. And with the other players coming off that they have, like the Zetterbergs and stuff, they're going to have some money, and they could be in a better position given what they have to sign him at a what market value is, i.e. like the Tavares deal, and see where it goes. It's a risk, right? It's a risk. They could have bought 3 more years, and they didn't. And that's the risk. But the risk could pay off, given that the Red Wings, if they want money, they have it. Right. And if they have the right talent and stuff in 5 years, let's assume 4, because you're going to want to deal with it going into the 4th year before he ever sees UFA time. Right. There's potential that they could really work this to their advantage, but they've got 4 years to work it. Right.
Now let me mention something there. On Twitter, I did see somebody was using the WAR analogy, wins above replacement for Larkin, and like the last 3 years, the numbers are going down. Here's the funny thing about WAR. I'm a proponent of it only in baseball and only for pitchers. And the reason is, and I've used it in books that way, and the reason is, when I've looked at it and looked at the value, baseball is more singular than hockey anyhow. So let's get that straight. Yeah. Even though it's a team sport. But pitching is completely singular. Like what that pitcher does, other than errors, which is listed and then there's no earned runs, that really, he is in control of his own destiny each and every game, with the exception, like I said, of errors. So like when you see a pitcher with a big time WAR, then okay, you know what? When he's on the mound every 5th day, chances of them winning are 75%. That means something to me. WAR in hockey means nothing to me.
Yeah, and the thing, and of course, I look at everything through a Maple Leaf prism here, and the restricted free agency of William Nylander is front and center when it comes to the Leafs. And I recognize that Larkin is a center, so you're going to pay and centers are paid differently in the league. But if you look, he had that great rookie season where he scored over 20 goals. I think point wise, he was in the mid 40s in his rookie year. He dipped to 32 points in his. It was a bad sophomore year, and he bounced back really well last year. In the last year's ELC and scored 63 points. I think it was 16 goals. Nylander has played 2.25 years. The full years he's scored 61 and 61. I think the odds are now, because based on this, and I know that, like I said, I recognize that there's a difference in position. Nylander's a winger and Larkin is a center, but based on this, if you're talking the Leafs wanting a 6 or 7 year deal with Nylander, I think you're talking closer to $7 million now based on what Larkin got. It's not going to be closer to Ehlers, or at least this is what Nylander's agent's going to press for, something longer term, something more expensive on a longer term deal, because it's buying out more unrestricted years. And to my mind, I think, Russ, that lends itself to them going the bridge direction because it'll be cheaper.
Yeah, I think the bridge is the way to go, and it is cheaper. You know, there's something also going on in the chat room. Funky Cold Zadina is sort of ripping on.
I love that name.
I know, ripping on Ken Holland for not producing a top 4D, and I said Dennis Cholowski will be a top 4D, but then it's like, well, he's had ample time to replace Lidstrom, and you know, my answer to that is, the Rangers still haven't replaced Brian Leetch.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost impossible to replace these guys. Like, here's the thing. If you wanted to replace Lidstrom, and let's say Quinn Hughes was your answer, that's fine. But then who's replacing Zetterberg? He got with Zadina, he got a guy who can replace Zetterberg. You can't get all these guys in 1 or 2 or 3 years. That is the problem.
The Leafs haven't replaced Borja Salming, and it was 35 years ago.
Right.
It's, you know, you're talking about generational talents. Lidstrom is an all-time great. He's up there with Orr and Potvin and Robinson is. Yeah, I mean, come on.
You can't replace generational talent. Like, you just can't until you actually get it and it becomes generational talent.
Yeah. To use a baseball example here, and I mean, I know that, like, Derek Jeter is an all-time great shortstop, and the Yankees were lucky enough to get Didi Gregorius right after Jeter. Now Gregorius is not a Hall of Famer, but he's a pretty damn good shortstop. If you get somebody that good who's potentially an all-star and an above-average player in a position like that, you have to be thankful, because it's very rare you're going to replace a generational guy with another generational guy. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
So, but it'll be interesting now, because, you know, we're getting, it's now about a month away from the start of training camp, less than a month till like rookie tournaments start. And that's when things will ramp up and the pressure will be on players who are not signed, like Nick Ritchie, like Nylander, and a few others, to get into camp and to get the deals done. But I right now, if I had to guess, we've been playing the game that we played early in the week. We guessed bridge. I think there's more of a likelihood that Nylander is going to get signed for a bridge deal than a long-term deal. So the other contract that came up late yesterday, and if that would have been enough to talk about, was the Christian Dvorak deal. A little surprising, because Dvorak he was eligible to sign an extension. He has a year left on his ELC. Dvorak won a Memorial Cup with the London Knights. Very good player. First 2 years in the NHL, scored 32 and 37 points, so less than 40. But, you know, we're talking about an Arizona team that's young and just starting to come along. He got a 6-year deal at $4.45 million. Now that buys 2 years of unrestricted free agency, and, you know, he's going to be under contract to them for 7 years. One more of the ELC, and then the extension kicks in after next season. The risk here, Russ, is, I mean, they're doing some sort of like prognosticating and throwing a dart at the dartboard here, hoping that Dvorak continues to progress and that he becomes the player that they think he can. And if he does, then this is a good deal, but it's not without risk.
Well, this is called forecasting. And when I was in the business world, I would have to forecast, like in the hotel world, what occupancy was going to be. And you have just so many stats you can use, and then some of it is guesswork.
Right.
And so what they have to use is still pretty strong, though. Here's some good things. So Christian Dvorak has scored 30 goals. Of his 30 goals, 26 have been even strength. Of his 40 assists, 32 have been even strength. Last year, he went up from 46.8 on faceoffs to 51.4. Remember, he's only 21. That may improve. These are really good things. He is the kind of guy that you want out there when the game's tied and there's only a couple of minutes left, because he's not gonna hurt you defensively. He can win a faceoff and he might score you the game winner. He plays hard minutes. He's physical. He's fast. I like the deal. I think this is great by Chaika. It's proactive, which we haven't seen enough proactive signings, and I like it.
Yeah, it's definitely proactive, Peter, and I'm not disputing Dvorak's talent, but it is slightly risky.
He'll be back in a sec.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is slightly risky because you never know what's going to happen in terms of injury. You never know what's going to happen in terms of a player being able to just continue to develop. And now I think there are a lot of young players, and the proactive part of this deal is the fact that they bring in a guy like Galchenyuk, and maybe Galchenyuk plays with Dvorak. And if that happens and Dvorak puts up a 50-point season, and you go into go into next summer in a position that Detroit was in with Larkin and Toronto was in with Nylander, and he puts up this big number, then you're talking probably north of $5 million, maybe 5.5. So in being proactive, they say each year for the next 6 years. But Peter, this is the thing. I was just looking up as an example. I remember Buffalo doing this with Tyler Myers after he won Rookie of the Year. His second year was pretty decent, and they said, okay, let's lock him up long term. He had 48 points and he had 37 points, and they signed him to a 7-year deal at 5.5. And that contract ended up not being a good value for them. And it's been a decent value for Winnipeg as he's returned, but there was injury problems. There are things that can divert a player in a long-term deal. And that's why I'm saying this contract with Dvorak is not without risk.
No, it's not. But this is the thing. I think if you're a Coyotes fan, you're kind of like, when are we going to start building towards something? And that's, and as Russ said, you used the term proactive. This is simply, are they now finding out what they have? They've made deals. They're assembling what they want. Now they're going to start keeping these players, signing them to appropriate level contracts, because they are a very cash challenged team, as we're well aware of. Not the only one, not trying to pick on them, but, and then so they can aim to something, because I think that's the point. Like, I think everyone's been waiting for the Coyotes since they hired Chaika to come around and say, what's the direction? What are they trying to do? What are they aiming for? When are they going to build a team rather than helping teams out by taking on problems for some other pieces and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And this is probably, with what we've seen with the OEL deal and this, now we're starting to see the shape of the direction they want to go and who they're identifying. So it's a fair deal. I think it's a fair risk for a team like Arizona. And that's I think if you're a hockey fan in Arizona, you have to feel positive about what this did. And
not only the OEL deal, but they extended Ranta, they extended Yarmulson. So they are locking up players long term, but there still is that, they have so many youngsters on their ELCs that they have to take on Dave Boland's contract, or probably take on Datsuk and Pronger and all those guys. They've had to do that. Now maybe they'll actually be paying out money for players that are actually going to play for them, and which is a novel concept. Just a slight detour off of that. I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in the Phoenix area, and one of the reasons why, and we've talked about Gary Bettman sort of having this thing about staying in Arizona. The recent census numbers have indicated that the Phoenix area will be the 4th highest population in the United States, behind New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. There's your reason why they're going to stay in Arizona, because
people have to be awake at 7 o'clock.
I agree, and they actually also
the median age. That's the key number.
And they also actually have to be able to be willing to travel from Scottsdale to Glendale and go through Phoenix,
right?
Or or wherever they're probably going to be playing in the building that they're playing in right now for the next couple of years until they straighten out the arena situation. But I mean, that's the reason why there's such a want of the league to stay in that area. So I mean, we'll see what happens. But I mean, the thing that will make it more easier for them to stay there is that they actually have some success on the ice, and they do have talent. It's just you have to build towards something, and eventually they'll be successful, you would think, with all the talent that they have.
I mean, this is we have been asking for this, and so this is something where I think it helps them. I did look up the median age, and right now it went from 32.9 to 37.4. That, and the male population is, it's just under 50% for men. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, those are not exactly the numbers you want, because are you going to get a lot of female viewers? I don't know. I don't like that number to be like 60% men. Would, the 37.4, not that to say like a 37-year-old's too old to want to go to the game, but when you have an average of 37, that means there's a lot of 50, 60, 70, and 80-year-olds there.
Well, offer a soup and salad combo and some Geritol giveaways, and maybe you get the people going to the Gila River or jobbing.com arena. Now, Russ, we mentioned it earlier in the week, but the deadline is Sunday. That the self-imposed deadline apparently for Brady Tkachuk to make a decision regarding signing an ELC with the Ottawa Senators or going back to BU for another year. I haven't heard anything on this, but for me, from my point of view, looking at the Ottawa situation, I would try to stay away from it. And I would, if I was Tkachuk, I would go back to BU for another year and play in the World Junior, but especially for the fact that he doesn't need the money, but we'll find out a decision before Monday. So what do you think is going to be the decision?
Well, I was listening to Craig Button on the Summer Showcase broadcast on one of them. He was talking about Tkachuk going to the London Knights and thought that would be a great setup for him. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the better setup for him is really to go back to BU. And it's not because I'm choosing college over junior hockey, because I don't think it matters how many games Brady Tkachuk plays. I think we all know what Brady Tkachuk is capable of doing, and he started to show a lot of that last year. But Brady Tkachuk can work out 3 days a week in BU with a world-class staff and then play on the weekends. And I think that's better for him, because if we see just a little bit stronger, built-up Brady Tkachuk, which we know can happen, considering how much he elongated his body the last couple of years with that growth spurt, right, I think that's the best way for him to go. So that's what I'm hoping to see, honestly.
Well, Peter,
go ahead. I was going to say, if you are the Ottawa Senators and this is something that you're trying to influence one way or the other, you're doing it wrong. You go and talk to Brady Tkachuk and say, we have no pressure for you to come join the club right now. You do what you think is best for you. We are standing behind you, and we need you to get to where you want to be on your terms, and we want to be a part of it. You act so positive, because that tire fire of a franchise sends out all the wrong messages, wrong moves. They allow quotes to get out from players, from management. They have conflicts with the owner. This is their reset moment of saying, we have our top prospect here. How are we going to bring him in? They've had a disastrous arbitration with Stone. I mean, this is the point that you realize there may be a deeper bottom here, but you don't know when you're going to hit that point. But this is your point to avoid getting it and start changing the direction, because you don't have much to change with, really.
Yeah.
And you need to nurture this relationship in the way that the player feels, I'm valued and I want to stick with what we're going through.
And there's no risk when it comes to the Senators of him if he goes, and I know this because it's happened with Leaf prospects who played, like Jeremy Bracco, who played for BC, I think for like 5 games, and then ended up going to the OHL. He played for Kitchener. The draft rights for a player who played originally in the NCAA and then went to any team in the CHL, it's still 4 years.
Right.
So that they can retain him. I mean, if Tkachuk was looking for a way to sort of get out going to Ottawa, this is not the way to do it. It's like, I mean, his brother Matthew played in London. I am sure that it was a positive experience because he won a Memorial Cup there. And if he didn't want to go back to BU, then maybe London would be an option. But he could go to London after signing an ELC with the Senators. So I'm not sure if that direction that Craig Button was talking about is indicative of him signing a deal or not signing a deal. If he doesn't sign a deal, then I agree with Russ. I don't see why he wouldn't go back to BU because he, I mean, unless it wasn't a pleasant experience, and we know Quinn was the coach there, right, Russ? So
you have a new coach, but again, Bracco's situation was because, hey, he wasn't a good student,
right?
We have not heard that about Brady Tkachuk, so I don't.
No. I was just. No,
I know.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Usually, that's a reason to say, all right, you know what, I'm gonna cut my college career short but if Tkachuk is a good student, like I think he is, go back and get the second year of your degree. You're halfway there. Then you could start turning pro, and in the summers you could finish up, your degree. I think that's the smart way to go, because just because his name is Tkachuk and just because he looks great right now doesn't mean he can't have some sort of injury that throws his career off. So this is a free education that I think you take advantage of as a person. That's the way I would go, man.
Now, I sent you a list, and there was a list put out by Cap Friendly of players who would become unrestricted free agents on August 15th. That's the time of the summer after. Has completed his 4 years in college and can become an unrestricted free agent and sign with another team, a team that didn't draft him. Right now, in the past, Russ, I think 2 years ago, it was Jimmy Vesey watch, and we know how, I still think, he's been a success story. I mean, not to the great, the great expectation that a lot of people had. I still think he's a very effective player. And Will Butcher and Alex Kerfoot last year were major success stories with Colorado and with New Jersey. But this year, it doesn't seem like there's anybody of impact.
No, I mean, one of the telltale signs is I was talking about those guys a year in advance, right? I was bringing them up saying, hey, especially Butcher. Now, in this group, look, Jack Glover, who was with the NTDP and Winnipeg, I've kept track of him. He's an okay defenseman. Like, he's got some good things about him. Could he play some depth minutes in the NHL? Yeah, possibly. So somebody's going to sign him, but I don't know if somebody will be in a rush to sign him. And I don't think Winnipeg's in a rush to retain him based on the fact that their defense, even, when you go pretty deep now, is pretty good. So I think that's a situation where they'll probably let him go, and it's not a big deal. Michael Prapavisis, it's a name.
Yeah.
I'd seen him play more than a few times in Rensselaer, in RPI, and I think he's a pretty good puck-moving defenseman. Right now, he played for the Cyclones last year. He played 11 games there. He was played with Bryson Martin, who, if you remember, was drafted from the Sabres. Is that a guy that eventually could play some NHL minutes? Yeah. So I think someone might sign him, maybe not even this year, but just as because you want depth on defense. Terrence Amoroso was a guy who the Flyers drafted. They were really, and he played out of Clarkson, really high on him 2-3 years ago. I felt like it was starting to wane, and I think it's gotten to the point now where there's just no interest. So I'm not sure if he'll get something. I have seen Aiden Muir in Western Michigan. He's okay, I mean, when you look at, there was one other player, Dwyer Shantz at Cornell, like a good player, like could play defense and stuff. He's not putting up points. Mm-hmm. These days, I think when you're looking at this list, you have to either be really offensively gifted, like Kerfoot and Vesey in college, to to be able to be a free agent and have a lot of people go for you, or just be a defenseman that has some potential. And then I think you do get signed. So I think a couple of the defensemen get signed.
Peter, I know that Eck mentioned last night on Twitter that he had been hearing some chatter regarding Winnipeg and Toronto. Didn't offer any specifics, but it's not out of the realm of possibility based on conversations that we've had regarding how even just defensively, how one team could really help the other. I mean, from what I recall, and I know that you've got Trouba, Bufflin, who was the other one on the right side with Myers on the right side with Winnipeg. On the Leafs, you have Dermott, Gardner, and Riley as all lefties, and Hainsey playing out of position, a left shot playing right D. So the Leafs are heavy on left D. The Jets are heavy on right D. And they have similar situations with Myers being a UFA after this season, Gardner being a UFA in Toronto this season. It does make sense. But again, and these are two teams in similar positioning in terms of lots of talent that they have to get signed over the next year or two. So, I mean, it's not impossible to think that something could get done here.
You know what? There's always smoke around these two teams. Like that's the consistent theme here, and we've been seeing it for a while. So there's smoke. I don't think it's impossible for anything to get done. I think it could be likely. I think what Dubas and Cheveldayoff have to come to terms with, is am I trying to outmaneuver my counterpart to get the best out of it, or am I trying to make my team better? And I think that's part of it, right? Like, and we, and so when we all sit and play our armchair GMs, and we all do this, and fans, whatever you want, bloggers, writers, you name it,
right? You
always try and figure out a trade that makes you better and gets rid of your problems, right? Like it's always the idea of spare parts, or your bad, a lot of quantity of bad for something good.
Sure.
And in this case, I don't think either team has that ability to do of dumping a lot of bad for something good, because neither GM is going to do that, right? So this is the point of how do we arrive at fair value that fixes our needs, because they do align well. And I think that's where if there's some smoke going and it leads to some fire, that's where it's going to come around on. I also think that should a deal arrive at, and say it does involve a player like Jacob Trouba, the obvious candidate, and it involves someone like Jake Gardner, there's going to be other pieces that move with this. Sure. And it might be picks, it might be prospects, or it might be other roster players. But no doubt if the two sides are engaged in the level of conversation that's being suggested, there's a lot of moving pieces here, because they both have the same impending cap issues. Winnipeg probably a little more dire than the Leafs, but they're all coming to roost, right? They've got, what are who are the big three for the Leafs that they're going to have to deal with? Matthews,
Marner, and Nylander,
right?
And Gardner is the fourth, and he's a UFA as opposed to being an RFA.
And for the Jets, you have Morrissey, Laine, Connor, right? And whatever so you have the same kind of headaches coming due, and and that's where everything's going to be really interesting, because for both teams, they have to alleviate that stress on the salary cap so they can do what they need to do. Like, they can fit everyone in, but it's going to come at expenses elsewhere. And that's what will be really interesting about this, if something should come to fruition.
Well, and the one thing I think that would have to be determined beforehand for a deal to take place between Toronto and Winnipeg is a determination on both sides of what is going on in terms of being able to get a player signed with a deal. Like with Gardner, his agent is Pat Brisson. Yeah. Dubas spoke to Pat Brisson at the draft. Now, I don't know whether there's been any contact since then, but based on the fact, and we've talked about this before, based on the fact that guys like McDonough and OEL and Doughty and probably Carlson, but Carlson may go to next July, got locked up. Yarmulson's another one. Gardner it's Gardner, Myers, and Jay Bomeister is the top 3 defensemen on the free agent market next year. And if Gardner puts up another 50-point season, which he's likely to do with the Leafs, with Tavares and Matthews and the offensive firepower that they have, he's setting himself for a payday, probably not as much as John Carlson, but I'd say probably in the 7 to 7.25 range, which I don't think first of all, I know the Leafs can't afford it. And even if they could afford it, I don't think they would want to sign him. Now,
same for the Jets, right? It's the exact same problem if they were the basis of a trade.
Right. Now the thing is that Gardner, he's only got a year left, and then he's free and clear. A guy like Trouba has got 2 years. He's got another year of arbitration. So the ability to hold on.
But team arbitration, he can't file, right? Because he already used his turn. He filed once.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
So,
team arbitration.
So if you're a team, you're gonna file for arbitration next summer and go for a 2-year deal.
Right.
Right.
And
that's then that's the end of arbitration, and he's UFA. So you got to be pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Right. Like, I mean, this is not a good situation for the Jets right now. And every day, every week, every month that goes by, it only messes the problem up more for them.
Well, this was the point. Like, okay, the Leafs have to find out what the price point on Gardner is. I'm assuming that they have a general idea. With Winnipeg, they really have to find out what the price point is on 2 guys. 1, Morrissey on a long-term deal. 2, on Myers, whether they want or can extend him before they can maybe think about trading Trouba, because I can't see them trading Trouba and then losing Myers as an unrestricted free agent. So they have to.
They won't.
Yeah, so they have to find out one or the other and then move accordingly. So this is not a process that, like, you can just the first day of training camp say, "Oh, hey Kevin, let's make a Myers for Gardner deal."
The chat room, Mike, is waiting to see how your reaction will be when they sign Jake Gardner to a long-term deal. That they're salivating over that.
Here's the thing that I wonder about with. Okay, let's just use Myers and Gardner. Okay. So there's a segment of, and I'm just talking fans. Let's not talk about the hockey side of things, just the fans thing here. There's a segment of the Jets population who would ship Myers out for just about anything right now because they believe he's doing more harm than good. I believe there's a segment of the Leafs who are super frustrated with Gardner in his defensive play.
Oh, yes.
Now, Myers, it's a bunch of things, and you could pick any of them. So you're swapping problems. But if you don't need Myers to be offensive, he could probably be fairly serviceable, particularly in a Babcock kind of scheme. Here's the thing. Jets fans are not going to have any tolerance for Jake Gardner if he's anywhere near Dustin Byfuglien.
Okay,
because you got the same issue here, right? And that's what I wonder if that transcends into a hockey argument.
But here's the thing, Peter. I think, and again, I could be wrong, I think the Jets are sort of waiting for the day when they could have guys like Byfuglien and Myers and Logan Stanley on the ice because they all could skate, they're all big, and they all could throw their body around a little bit. Myers not as much. And when you can do that, that does make it hard to play against.
Yeah.
Assuming a Gardner for Myers deal, Myers would probably be on the top pairing with Morgan Riley and would allow Hainsey to play either second pairing with Zaitsev or third pairing with a guy like Travis Dermott. So it would have a domino effect. Gardner, I would assume, would probably play. I can't see Gardner playing with Byfuglien because you have to have somebody playing back behind the red line. But that would mean him playing with Trouba, which actually would probably be a good pairing because Trouba is a tough guy who can play both ways and would cover up for some of Gardner's problems.
But here comes the problem. There's no way you're just transferring the headache, right? There's no way you're going to be able to pay Morrissey, Byfuglien, Trouba, and Gardner. Like, you just can't do it.
Right.
There's no way.
There is some breaking news. So Sportsnet 590 is reporting that Eugene Melnick is meeting with the mayor of Ottawa today. So that probably is that either the start, the middle, somewhere point of the arena negotiations.
Right.
And so all these things are going on at once. Like, it does make for chaotic times.
Yeah. And to answer those in the chat who are salivating, as you said, waiting for my reaction to a Gardner deal, it all depends on what the deal is. I personally, if I was the Maple Leafs, would not pay Jake Gardner any more than Morgan Riley's making $5 million a year. That would be my cap on Jake Gardner. If he's looking for more than $5 million a year, bye-bye.
Yeah, but Riley got that years ago. Like
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
How many goals did Gardner have last year?
He had, it was like 7, maybe. I don't think he scored over 10. Let me just double check. But
and how many did Carlson have? Do you know? Just I know you don't. I don't expect you to know. I'm just not.
I'll look it up.
Okay, you look up Carlson. Gardner last year had 5 goals, 47 assists, 52 points.
Carlson had 9 goals.
Yeah.
So we're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, if you're paying Gardner, you're paying him for the total contribution to offense.
Yes,
right.
He's a puck rusher. He's a power play guy.
Yeah. And that's and if so that's sort of the thing. How badly does a team need that? And the team that needs that may not be the best trade partner for the Leafs. That's a problem.
Right.
And that's the challenge. And that's where I think ideally, having a Morrissey Gardner 1-2 is great for the Jets on the left side, but your expense would have to be probably Trouba, because he's going to take up what you're going to eventually land Trouba for in Winnipeg, if it's even possible, is what Gardner's going to get. And you're going to have to hope Myers takes a better deal and keep him.
Yeah. And
like that's kind of how it probably shakes down.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is that you could see in a year like a Myers on Toronto if they let Gardner walk, because Myers sort of fits what they're looking for in terms of filling in their left side, right side breakdown. So I mean, it's possible, but Mike,
the chat room's trying to get to you now. Like, there's a post for 8 years, 7 million AAV.
Well, whoever posted that has jumped the gun on the marijuana date of October 17th, because the Leafs are not doing that. I'm sorry. Take into consideration, the adjustment for percentage of cap on a new deal. So if Riley was $5 million, then whatever the percentage of cap was on that deal, then maybe Gardner gets paid above and beyond that. I don't see them signing Gardner. He'll be 28 years old. I don't see him signing Gardner for any more than, for less than 6. I don't think they can afford any more than that. And I think that with Liljegren coming, with Dermott in the NHL this year, I think the odds are he gets traded before the deadline, even if they're contending, if they're in a playoff spot, contending possibly for a cup. They cannot let a guy who's going to walk away go for nothing. So that's, I can continue to say that. One interesting thing I saw, and then we'll take a few questions in the chat before we end the show. We were talking about, the situation in Minnesota with Matt Dumba signing a new deal, and the cap crunch that they might be under, and how it might be alleviated by Ryan Suter being on the IR to start the season. Well, he's skating. He started to skate, and he expects to be ready for training camp. So he's accelerated his the time frame of him being able to play. If that happens, I believe they have less than $1 million in cap space, Russ. I think that brings to the forefront the possibility of them, moving a guy like a Spurgeon as a cap relief situation.
I'm not going to think that. I'm thinking right now this all looks great, and then first day of camp things could completely change. So I don't think they're going to do it. The summer cap lets you roll throughout training camp, and I think they're going to hang loose with that.
So you think I mean, depending. I mean, I'm assuming that if he's skating now and that if he's going to be ready for training camp, that he's going to be okay. And then it's right to assume that. But yes, something can happen, and if he has a setback, then he may start the year on LTIR. But if he doesn't, if he's ready to go, then they're really strapped. I mean, it's going to be one of those situations where they're going to be pinching pennies and counting every dollar with every call up during the year, and you really can't operate with less than $1 million in cap space. I don't know what the exact figure is. I'll have to look it up on Cap Friendly, but I mean, from what I remember, it was close. It was close to just $1 million, and you need a little wiggle room under the cap, especially at the deadline if you want to add players too. So
here's a question: if you're looking at comparable cap hits, how do you pay Gardner more than Gostisbehere?
Well, I don't know if that'll actually happen. It'll just happen possibly temporarily, but I don't know if that'll be the end result. I don't think it will be.
Well, I mean, remember Gardner. Okay, Gostisbehere is what, 23, Russ?
25.
No, he's 25 because he.
25. Okay, so Gardner. I mean, Gardner signed the deal that he's currently on. I believe it was 3 years ago. And at $4.025 million, and if you probably calculate that one out to percentage of cap, it's probably equal to what Gostisbehere got from the Flyers. So they're pretty much the same type of deal. It's just Gardner's 2 or 3 years older. So I mean, it's in the same range, and they're pretty much the same type of defenseman. Although I think Gostisbehere is probably better defensively than Gardner is.
He made a jump last year to put him ahead of him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, and I know people they can't take my opinion of Jake Gardner seriously because they know that I've been a very, very, very critical of him. He's 28. He's not going to improve on the type of defenseman he is. You would have seen that by now. You don't have this great change in the way a player is. I mean, it can happen at 23. It can happen at 25. It can't happen in 28. At 28, he is what he is. So, and I'm not saying what he is bad. It's just, it's got flaws. He's a one-way player. He's a very good offensive player. He's creative. He's quick. He's got a good shot. Lots of teams need a player with that skill set. Toronto has got players like that already. They need somebody who shuts down, who clears the front of the net, who's tough in their own zone. And Gardner is never going to be that. So that's why, I think that the Leafs need to move on and find that defenseman who fits what they need better. So,
all right, we're going to do a couple quick questions, then we're going to go.
Okay.
Drew asked, does Brady Tkachuk go back into the draft in 2 years if he opts out to go to junior instead of college and doesn't sign?
No.
He was drafted out of college. Look, he's going to get signed.
No, that's not what happens.
Yeah, it's not what happens, and it doesn't matter. He's going to sign.
Right.
He's not going to be an unsigned guy beyond next year. All right. So next one, Vepsis, how many prospects from 2018 draft class will play this year? I mean, I think Zadina and Svechnikov are locks. After that, it gets a little ponderous. I don't think Tkachuk's going to.
Kotkaniemi is a 50-50.
Yeah, Kotkaniemi is a 50-50. Then there could be a surprise one. Seeing what I saw out of Bouchard lately, I would say no.
What about Dobson?
And Dahlin's obviously, right? So there's three.
Yeah.
No, Dobson, no. Honestly, that may be it to start. Now, what could change this is at the end of the season, let's say Michigan, their season ends early. Yeah, Quinn Hughes could maybe get in a game or so, but that would have to be, I think, only if Vancouver were in the playoffs. I'm not sure if I guess if they don't go to the Frozen Four, I guess Quinn Hughes would have a chance at playing a few games. So there's something for, a chance for that, but that's a real long shot too.
Yeah, so we're saying basically at the most 4.
Yeah.
Dahlin, Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi, and Zadina.
Yeah. Let's see. Cousin Eddie is saying Gardner for Norris because he just wants to bug Mike.
Attaboy,
our good friend Cousin Eddie from Sudbury, nickel capital of the world.
All right, that's pretty much it for questions.
Okay, great job. All right, guys. Everybody have a great weekend. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.